Retirement is a journey, and it's different for everybody. And I've helped many people retire, and I've told the stories of different people. I try and give each week some interesting tidbits or advice that I've learned through helping others. And today I want to talk specifically about the journey that people go through in retirement, what to expect. But rather than give an example of a couple, I'm going to give an example of myself. Not that I retired, but I'm going to compare. I'm going to do an analogy to a hike that I was recently on in the state of Arizona. I went to Phoenix and I decided I was going to hike Camelback Mountain. And for those that you don't know, it's not an easy hike. I'm going to share some pictures with you. And I'm also going to bring in my co host, Tony, who I was there to meet for business purposes. And I decided I was going to go on this hike. And I asked Tony if he'd want to join me. And he said no. But then I came to find out that he took the journey himself the next day after I left. So, Tony, welcome to the show. And it's good to see you again. This time,
good to see you.
We're back in our own little studios, but we got a chance to see each other in Arizona. And what I want to do is tell my journey on this and relate it to retirement planning. So what I want you to do is to keep me honest and make sure that I have this analogy going, because people listening want retirement tips, and this one's going to be really helpful figuring it out if I can stay on the path and keep this analogy going the whole time. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. It's amazing that we both did that. You told me you did it, and you had to fly out earlier. I stayed a day later, and so I did it the next morning, and it was beautiful. It was clear. It had been cloudy the whole time, but it was clear, blue sky. So I'm like, I gotta try it. So
right. So retirement. I want to relate this to retirement. I'll see if you can help me keep on track with that. The first step that I did is when I found out we were going to meet each other in Phoenix, I looked it up. I did some do-it-yourself research, and I figured, I've never been to Phoenix before. And I said, well, what can I do there? And I saw that the place we were staying was right next to a mountain, Camelback Mountain. And so I said, well, I'd like to go hike that. Now I'm not in great hiking shape, but I said, well, let me figure it out. So I planned it out. I said, this is what it's going to be. And I read about it and I was like, ooh, this is not easy. Right. And I think to relate that to retirement planning, a lot of people do that. They say, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire in 5 years, or I'm going to retire at some point, or I'm retiring next week. And they start thinking about what that means, what that looks like. And they start planning. They start thinking about what they might do, what they need to prepare, and how they do that. So that is usually the first step for people. Now, of course, there are people that don't plan and they show up in Arizona and they don't even know there's a mountain there. And so they don't even think to go up it. So those same people don't plan retirement and they may not ever retire.
Right.
So after looking at the mountain and saying, all right, reading about it, I was like, all right, I got to pack. So I packed all my things. I packed hiking boots. I packed rain gear. I packed warm clothes. I packed a water bottle, different equipment and clothes I needed for that. So my carry-on bag was really packed compared to a normal 2-day business meeting. I was to the brim. I was wearing some weird clothes on the plane. And so I was prepared for, and I was packing for this event that I was going to. I was thinking ahead. Now, to relate that to retirement, people allocate their funds. People have a 401k. They say, let me allocate and prepare for retirement by buying a target date fund or putting some in bonds, some in stocks, or setting some money aside. A lot of people do that, not thinking too hard about it. I was very specific. So people can allocate more specifically as they get closer to retirement and say, well, if I'm going to retire in 3 years, maybe I should be buying a CD or putting some in cash, right? So I knew I was going to this event. I knew I was going to go on a mountain. So I packed my hiking boots.
Smart.
Did you pack hiking boots, Tony?
No,
Okay.
but I did have some shoes that are like Keens that kind of work as they're hiking shoes. They're not boots. So they can work for hiking, and they did. For the most part. And yeah, I should note right now, I did not make it all the way to the top like Dan did. But I made it a lot further than I thought, and my family didn't believe that I was actually going to make it at all. I had no My family was laughing and or worried, like, sure, Dad, you're gonna go hiking up that mountain today. Because they looked it up. They're like, it's a double black diamond. I'm like, I'm gonna go as far as I can and then turn around. I'm gonna take it easy. But it's crazy. I do want to note for our listeners and viewers out there, over 300,000 people a year go on that very trail that you and I hiked up Camelback, the one we
There
did.
you go. I didn't know
It's
that.
very popular. Yeah, they told they had that listed. I was reading some facts about that trail and that mountain, so it was fun.
So this happens to a lot of people. They don't pack properly. They don't plan properly.
A lot of people didn't. They bring one bottle of water to go up and back, and they're sweating, and they don't realize there's some verticals.
Yeah. And so the same thing happens with retirement. People don't plan, oh, I'll just buy the target date fund and think that's going to be the answer.
Yeah.
It's not. You have to
No.
think a little bit harder if you want to do it right. So, okay, now I get there. First thing I do when I arrive at the hotel is I go to the concierge and say, hey, I'm going up Camelback Mountain. What do you think? And what do you think they said, Tony? A woman behind the counter sized me up.
Yeah. And she said, do you have full coverage on insurance? Does your wife know? Will your wife and kids be taken care of? I think that was her word. Those were her words, right?
She did give me the once over, like, it's a pretty rigorous trail. You know this, right? I said, I've done the research. She's like, well, here's a map. And she gave me a map to get there. So I was able to walk there.
I did the same thing at the concierge desk.
Right.
But when I asked, they said,
bottles of water.
Yeah, I asked, how do you get to the start of the trail? And the guy just stared at me and he said, it's a double black diamond, sir. That's what he said. And I go, give me a map to the start of the trail.
Which, by the way, they gave me the map and I got lost. First 5 minutes in, I'm realizing, oh, I just added 10 minutes to this trip because I went the wrong way.
So guess what I did? I went out with a $20 bill and I said to the guys out there, the whatever you call them out front, I said, hey, can you give me a ride in one of those golf carts to the start of the trailhead?
Oh, wow. That's smart.
And they did.
I should have done that.
Yeah. It was worth the $20.
So relating this to retirement planning, a lot of people do it yourself. They plan like you and I did. Well, you didn't plan. I planned. I brought the equipment. And even then, when I was about to go on the journey, I got the expert advice and said, hey, just make sure I'm not crazy here. Because she did give me some info that I wasn't aware of. And it was, hey, we're expecting rain today. If you're going to go, you better get up there and back before it starts raining. Because once it rains, they either close it or it gets so slippery, you're not going to want to be up there. So they planted that seed in my head. And I was like, Now, luckily, I packed rain gear, as we shall soon find out. So I started walking over there, and let me share a picture of what I saw. So this was me walking along the golf course to get to that mountain, and it doesn't look too intimidating there.
No.
Looks kind of, doable, right?
Yeah. My family said, oh, I guess, I can see that. It's not too tough. But that's from quite a distance.
Yes.
That's about 2 miles away. It's bigger up close, let me tell you.
So I arrived at the entryway, and here's the next thing I saw. Warning, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Double black diamond, like you mentioned.
Yeah, look at the elevation. That's pretty accurate too. And there's some really steep parts. I stopped about halfway up. I made it a little over halfway to the top, and I turned around because I don't do vertical. I was not prepared like you to do the vertical climb, but I wanted to go as far as I could. And they said, "Oh, you'll make it to at least the first area where you can look out and take some great pictures of the second." I made it to the second little area, but not the third and the fourth on top. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah.
When I went, though, it was sunny. So.
Well, when I went, it was cloudy.
Yeah.
And I looked at this and I said, all right, maybe this is serious. And look at there's no dogs allowed. And the to bring this back to retirement planning, you got to know the rules. Because if I was a local and I brought my dog, I'm like, I want to go on this hike, I would have been severely disappointed. Now, I guess you could break the rules, but it would have been tough for a dog. I don't think the dog couldn't do the last part for sure. You'd have to carry them up on some of those spots.
No, most
Um,
dogs can do almost any
yeah,
of it, really.
right.
Yeah.
But when I was there, so my retirement, going back to retirement, well, you got to know the rules. So, you got to know at 59 and a half, if you take money out of IRA before then, you're going to get hit with a penalty unless you do, certain ways around that. But you got to know the rules. Like if you take Social Security at 62 versus 70, you're going to get a haircut. That's a lifetime decision. So you got to make sure you're aware of what's going on. And apparently, a lot of people die on this trail in the summer because they just misjudge it. They don't know what the rules are. But I saw that. I wasn't intimidated, Tony, and I decided to move on.
Did you see a
And
helicopter had to come and rescue someone off the trail? But I think that was Friday. That might have been after you left.
yeah, I did not. And I know that it happens a lot. I didn't know it happened while I was there.
Yeah.
So I start walking in. It's beautiful. The landscape,
Yeah.
right off the bat, is the sagebrush and the cacti and everything. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I
Yeah,
really
that's
liked
the
it.
start
And
of it, and I saw the stairs, and I'm like, "Well, I can do this."
totally right.
Thinking that's
Right.
gonna be the way it is all the way to the top. That
And
the stairs
I'm
end
sorry
where
for
those
the
people are standing, right? That's it. That's
right,
the end of
right.
the easy trail right there.
It is. And sorry to the listeners on Spotify, iTunes. You can't see the pictures we're showing to go with this, but it's nice stairs.
Yeah.
It's pretty. They're not really tight. It's not too steep.
They're
It's
made of
not
loose
easy.
stones. It's not like,
Right.
concrete stairs,
Right.
but it's still really easy. The beginning was, really good.
Right.
That I like you call that the honeymoon phase, but that's
Right.
like it is in retirement. The first couple of weeks are like those stairs. "Hey, this is awesome."
Right. I'm fit. I could do this. I'm excited. Something new. I've never done it. Everyone's having a good time. I'm going on this cruise, right? This is great. This is what retirement's supposed to be. That's typically what it was. And that happened with me and you, right? You're like,
Yep,
this is doable.
yep.
And and then it starts to get a little harder. And one thing that I looked when I was going on this, as I'm approaching, I got up the top of these steps and I started taking a picture of a cactus, and all of a sudden something runs out in front of me. And I'm like, what was that? What is that? And it was a
Yeah.
road runner. It was a
Mhm.
road runner.
That's
I
awesome.
couldn't believe it. And I thought to myself, oh, wow. So I actually took a picture. I don't know if you could see it. The road runner on this rock in the middle here. Um, it's a lot smaller than I thought. So I've been bamboozled all my years of watching Looney Tunes. You know,
Bamboozled.
I was expecting this thing to be up to my chest, 4 feet tall roadrunner. That's what I was expecting. You
Because of
know?
the cartoons?
Yes. What else do I know? I've never seen a roadrunner before. I wanted to go, me. So I saw that, and at this point, Tony, it's early. I'm feeling good. I see a cactus. I got a picture of a roadrunner. I, I this is the greatest thing.
Yeah.
And I actually
Already it's fun.
what crossed my mind at that point is I should probably turn around. I should just end it here, quit while I'm ahead, because this is only going to get harder, right?
Right.
And that's what happens. You're in the honeymoon phase. Everything's going well, right?
Mhm.
But then you start to think, is this going to be the way it's going to be? So halfway through, I did I did a check-in. I said, okay, what's next? How am I doing? And this is maybe where you kind of got to, right? That nice cactus was there. I
Yeah, I
remember
got
that
a
one.
little further than that, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you reassess and you take an inventory. All right, how am I
Yeah.
doing on water? How am I doing on time?
There
What's
I
the
am.
weather like?
Clear
And I'm
skies
sizing up.
there. Clear
Right.
skies on that one.
Yeah, you did have nice clear skies on that. Mine wasn't as
I'm
clear.
still wearing my
Mine was great.
earbuds at that point. At one point after this, though, I had to take them out because it started to get rough. Didn't wanna lose
It
them.
got tough.
And I had
No,
to
yeah,
focus. I couldn't just listen to music as I climbed up.
You were listening to the sand come out from under your feet as you're walking. Like, oh.
Right. I didn't want to twist an ankle. That's for sure.
So it started to get a little steeper. And the trail wasn't as clean. Now, this was a spot that you might remember. It's a pretty long spot. It's not straight up, but it's enough where you couldn't stand there. You would slide down if you didn't continually look for a new spot.
I didn't make it up that. I made it above that and then turned around.
Yeah, that was past the halfway point. This was like, oh, we're getting real now, right? Yeah. And so at that point, I decided I'm going to keep going. But I was starting to think, this might get a little dicey. And then I got closer to the top. And, going back to the retirement part. So you're halfway, you'd gone the cruise, you're going a few weeks, months, maybe a couple years. And you're like, am I doing all right with retirement? And you do an inventory. You look at your numbers, you check in, you do the math again, say, how am I doing? Because one of the big risks of retirement is sequence of returns risk and early destruction of your portfolio due to taking money out and the market going down. And that could be an early fall, or, you might say, wow, I'm totally not prepared for this, right? So this is a chance to do that. And that was what I was doing here. And that happens a lot. So you should be doing these check-ins. It doesn't have to be midway, because how long is midway in retirement? You just don't know. But you should be doing these periodic check-ins just to make sure you're on track. So it started to get a little steeper. And then it was like, all right, I'm getting close to the top here. And I started to get a little fearful because the path started to get a little bit more crazy. Is that a good word?
Yeah, you had to climb hands. You had to start using your hands to climb at some point.
Yeah.
And then that's where I can't do that. So
yeah. And so I started looking back after that first little climb, and I all of a sudden saw, oh man, I could see the path is nice and smooth on the side of the mountain, but then now I can't even see the path because it's down below me.
Right.
And I've climbed up, and I said, now I'm starting to get a little regretful.
Yep.
Now I'm questioning, all right, do I really need to continue on? Do I? But I continued on, and this happens to people. They might be saying, all right, I just spent a big bunch of money on that trip, and I don't see my bank account growing because I'm spending. They start to get a little scared in retirement, and they start to say, whoa, am I doing something wrong here? My accounts are going down, and they get fearful. Yeah. And things start to look a little scary. Instead of fun and honeymoon light, they start to look a little rough waters, right? Then it got real, Tony. Then it got real. Well, let me see if I can find the picture. Yeah, how about this one? So now
that's a no-go.
I found myself looking at, where's the path? There is no path. This whole time I've been following a path, right?
You look straight up and you see those colored markers. That's the path.
That's the path. These little markers on this rock are the path. And I said, well, how do I get to that? I got to actually reach up and pull myself up and climb this rock.
Yep.
And that was the moment of truth. And I said, do I need to go any further, or should I go back? The weather was okay, but I was at peak doubt, right? I was like, no. And I was beginning to question myself, do I really want to do this anymore? And this happens in life, in retirement.
Yeah, you can almost, in that picture for our viewers, you can almost see the skeleton of somebody who didn't quite make it up there on the right. That's a guy leaning there. That's kind of just where he ended up. And I'm kidding.
And yeah, people like they're starting to say in retirement, if we're going back to the retirement analogy, do I need to go back to work? Do I need to call it here and say, no, I'm done traveling, or I need to go back? This is a serious point for people. And this happens. People, you'll get there. Maybe you won't, but a lot of people get there and say, man, this is a lot more than I bargained for. I didn't expect this to happen. And you know what happened at that time, Tony? A couple people were coming down. Some people were coming down, and you're sizing people up. Most of the people around me were a lot younger, but there were some older people coming down. There were two people that were running down, by the way. And I was like, what? Crazy? but they had, they were one guy was barefoot. I was like, all right,
Well,
here's a
you don't
better,
compare
right?
yourself to the crazies with bare
See,
feet.
but you can't. And what happens is a lot of people
Right.
in retirement are comparing what the others
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, they just went on the 90-day European cruise. My retirement stinks. No, you can't do that. You got your own journey, right? You
Right.
can't be compared. But I also was getting people coming down, and I would ask them, hey, how much further? Oh, you should do it. Or I had one woman say, oh, none of my friends would do this with me. I was scared, but I did it. I felt so good about it. And she was older than me, I think. And I was like, wow. And then she's like, I'm glad I did it. It's tough, though. I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough, but I'm glad I did it. The view is worth it. And I thought to myself, the view is not really what's worth it. I set out to something. I set this plan in motion. I want to see it through.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me
Yeah.
going.
But when going to that, I want to make a point. You talking about comparing yourself to others. I was doing that, and you're always doing that on this trip because there are other people, especially early Saturday morning and clear skies. It was quite busy, but I got to that point you showed where it was kind of like you're starting to lose the trail and where it started to get steep and less of a trail. And I got to that point, but I compared myself to others, shouldn't, but I'm like, okay, there was a young couple and the guy had a baby Bjorn on his front with a baby in it.
Mhm.
And they passed me on the way up. And but I know they stopped at a certain point and turned at a lookout by the cactus. They went back down. I made it further than the guy with the baby. So I that's not really I don't have much to brag about. That's all I can say is I made it because that guy, I told him as they passed me, I go, really? You're gonna do this with the baby? You're really making me look bad. And he kind of chuckled, but then they turned around at some point. They're like, oh yeah, we can't do this. I mean, because you can't go any further than that cactus with a baby. I mean, because it starts
Right.
getting, yeah.
No, you're right. And at one point after I got to that peak and I was like doubting, I got up to the top. There was a woman sitting there by herself and she wasn't in distress, but I could tell she wasn't happy. And the conversations got a lot more muted in the beginning, like, oh, where are you going?
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
once you got up top, it's like full on concentration. And she said to me, hey, do you mind helping me? Because she couldn't reach the next rock, right? And so I said, sure, let me go up. And I got up and I grabbed her water bottle, and then she was able to climb up. She's like, you know what? Maybe it was just that I needed both hands because
Well,
she was trying to carry
sure.
this water bottle.
Yeah. No, you can't
And
carry anything. No.
and then after we both got up there, she said, you know what? Maybe I just needed I just needed some confidence to see it can be done. And that's true with retirement. It's like you start to question everything, but just remember, you talk to other people that are doing it, and they'll remind you. It's not as scary as it seems.
Yeah.
So finally, I got up to the top, Tony, and I'll show the picture of me at the top here. And I did some
Awesome.
panoramic views, but I don't know how to. I should have taken a video so I could have shared the video. But the bottom line is, it was beautiful. There was other people up there, and that's when it was like, whoa, there are other people up here, and I didn't see them on the way up. They came from the other side. So then I'm like, oh, there's other ways to get up here. And there was a group of young kids talking, vaping, cursing. I was like, oh, great, you're ruining my moment. But then I'm like, they're doing their thing. There was a couple sitting there quietly. There was a lot of single people by themselves just kind of mulling about up there. And they're like, all right, now what?
Yeah. We're at the top of this
Right?
mountain.
And they're like, now what? And reflecting on retirement, same thing happens. You get there, you've done it. It's like, now what? And I think a lot of people reach there in their journey in retirement. They've done the cruises, they played the golf, and then like, now what? Right? And this is you can get stuck up there, or you could say, well, I gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I did. I said, I gotta keep going. I gotta get down. And in the distance, I saw some clouds, and I remembered what that woman said at the concierge desk. It might rain. And if it does, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I can't fathom being up there in the rain. I mean, that would be terrible.
Well, as soon as I took this picture, it started to drizzle. And I said, oh man, right? And so I moved on to the next step, which was I started the descent. And now my focus wasn't on, oh, look at the cacti. Look, let's see if I can find another creature, or let's talk to this person, or let's get a good picture. I was just get down, my focus, right? And to relate that to retirement, that's what happens. You get to the point where you've done all the things you want to do. And then it's just, all right, let me focus on what's important. I want to be with the grandkids, or I want to stay home. And you hear that a lot. Oh, my parents, they don't do anything anymore. They just sit around. Maybe they're happy with that. Well, they got all this money. So maybe it's not about just spending the money. Maybe it's about doing what you want to do and knowing what you want to do and staying focused. And I think that's what started happening as I was going down. The conversations were limited. The focus was just survive this, not to mention it was raining, right?
Right.
And when it started to rain, that's when the full crisis mode hit. Because
right.
I
You
went
don't want to
up
slip.
those mountainside. That was scary, but doable. But it was slippery now.
Coming down is the difficult part, right? I mean, that's where
Absolutely.
everybody who dies on Mount Everest, it's the trip down. That's what they
Right.
always say is
Right.
people plan to get to the top. They have a plan a lot of times. Some people don't plan, like you said, like the couple with a baby, they're just checking it out. Like me, I was checking it out.
Right.
But some people, they plan, they equip themselves like you did. They talk to get expert advice like you did. And then their goal is to hit the top. The problem is they don't have a plan to get down. The goal shouldn't be to reach the top. The goal should be able to complete the trip, to get back to home base successfully and alive, right? That's the key.
Yes. Yeah. And you're going to run into rain, even if you have the best plan, right?
Yeah, there are going to be rainy days, right?
But I didn't panic. Right. And you're right. That analogy of getting up to the top is like working and saving for retirement. Getting down is the hard part. Different set of tool sets needed. Different mindset. Right.
Yeah.
And so I knew this going in, but then it started to rain. It's like, wow, pressure's on, because I needed to get down to the less crazy part. And so I did. And I put my raincoat on at that point, and there were people coming up looking at me and making comments because they clearly didn't think it was going to rain because they didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that rain and that raincoat, putting it on, kind of validated my planning.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, see, I'm glad I did this. I'm that guy that's, I have stuff in my shed that I hold on to, waiting for that moment. And when I finally get to use it, it's like, see, there was a reason I held on to this for 15 years when I should have thrown it out. But this happens a lot in retirement just too. Is like, oh man, I put all my money in that CD for the short term. The market crashes. It's like, yeah, see, I'm so glad I did. But the problem is when it doesn't, when you're just sitting there and it's not earning anything and everyone else is making big money, then you start to say, oh man, why did I buy that stupid CD? Right. But you'll be validated on some parts if you do actually plan. So then I started observing other people coming up, and some of them were a little cautious and nervous, and they were like, hey, how far up more do you got to go? And I was honest with them. For others, I didn't say a word. I was just focused, but if they asked me, I gave my opinion, because I don't want to be that retiree that's like, oh, you're gonna take Social Security at 67. If you don't, you're a fool. Or you got to buy this bond, or you should never buy bonds. You should be in stocks. Or I bought an annuity and it's the greatest thing. You don't want to be that person, right? But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to ask those that are in it.
Right.
Find out what works for them, right?
Yeah, what's working for you? Get feedback.
They saw me coming down.
Yeah. But know that your situation is your situation, not the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of people observe me with a raincoat walking down, somewhat smiling. So they're like, all right, this guy seems to have his act together. Let me see what he's doing. Get an opinion from him, Like when I was walking up and a guy was running down barefoot, I did not ask him for advice, because no matter what he said, I heard,
it isn't going to apply to you.
It's not going to apply to me.
Same with the guy with the baby strapped to him. Right. I'm like, yeah, this guy's not giving me advice. He doesn't know what he's doing.
So in retirement, don't be so unwilling to ask for help and guidance, even when you feel you're on your way down. But also just don't give unsolicited. give good advice to people. And then finally, I made it. I made it to the hotel. I saw you. We took a picture. Let me see if I got that
Yeah,
picture.
yeah, we were
Yeah,
there. Tell the people why we're there. We're there for a financial conference, right?
yeah, yeah. I was there, and Tony, you were there, and we worked together in business capacity.
Yeah,
And every time we go to these events, and if you're there, we sometimes will record shows together, like we've done for the
yeah,
past 7, 8 years. But in this one, we didn't record a show. We had our own separate journeys up a mountain and
yeah.
made a show out of that. I didn't know you were going to go, Tony. I didn't know.
I didn't know I was gonna go. It was, that's the problem, and that's how people enter retirement too. "Oh, I'm retiring." That's right. You can't
Yeah,
wait until the last minute. It worked out for me because the weather was great, but again, the weather isn't always gonna be great in retirement. You have to plan. The fact that you had a raincoat, you're probably one of the only people up on the side of that mountain at that point with a raincoat, so you gotta
yeah.
feel good about that.
I did see a couple of tour groups coming up, and they all had ponchos. That's
Sure, sure.
standard issue stuff. But you didn't have any trouble. You survived, Tony,
I did.
without planning. But
Well,
you
I
didn't
know
go
my
all the way.
limits,
You didn't
and
go all the way,
I
too.
know my limits, and it's like I tell my kids, Dan, slow and steady wins the race. And I knew that the place where I'd twist an ankle or make a mistake would be on the way down. So
Mhm.
I went up a lot quicker than you go down. Going down is where you take your time
Yeah.
because that's where you can twist an ankle, fall, break something, make a mistake. You don't want to do that. So I
Detail.
took my time with it. Was I exhausted? Yeah. Did I work up a sweat? You bet I did, but it was
Yeah.
worth it. My heart rate, my watch beeped at me a couple of times. Hey, that heart rate.
Right.
What are you doing? You haven't, this is the first time we've hit these levels.
Are you okay, Tony? You're acting strange.
Yeah. Did you let someone else more fit than you borrow your watch? That's what my watch
Love it.
asked me.
So, Tony,
Let's wrap this up.
so what I want to do is conclude by saying retirement's a journey, various stages. And preparation is key, of course, right? The more you prepare, the better you'll be. But even if you have the best preparation, you bring the raincoat, you bring the hiking shoes, and you're like, I can handle the weather, you're still going to have a new twist.
Yep.
Maybe a roadrunner crosses your path and trips you up. Maybe an anvil and a coyote come and knock you off. Or the weather doesn't cooperate, or whatever it might be. In retirement, you're going to have twists and turns. That grandchild's going to have a need. Your spouse might predecease you earlier than expected. You just don't know. So there's no way of measuring success. We both had successful hikes. You went up, did it. Your level of preparation was different than mine, but your experience was different. Your desires and goals were different.
Yeah.
So it's all relative. But the one thing I do know, Tony, and this goes for all retirees, you're going to have pain at some point. Like, not only emotional pain, but physical pain. My shins the next day, I didn't know they existed. I didn't know there was such a thing as a muscle in the front of my leg, my shin area. So that I was reminded of that all night, that night and the next
Yeah,
day.
same.
But you're going to run into difficulties in retirement, no matter how much you plan. If you have a financial advisor in your back pocket or you don't, you do it yourself, or you're married or you're single, it doesn't matter. You're going to run into some snags. Just enjoy it and know that's the whole point. That's part of the process. That's part of the ride. And that's how I want to end it, Tony. Thanks for another good show. I can't believe you did the hike without me after telling me that I was crazy for doing it before you. You knew. And now
No,
you
I
learned
didn't
something
know.
new, Tony.
You inspired me. It's really, honestly, I'm like, well, if Danny boy can do that hike, my goodness.
Love it. All right, Tony. Thanks for a good show. We'll catch everyone next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management Inc. and Dolphin Insurance Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.